hippie trailhead full of zombies. I met a strange lady, she made me nervous. She took me in and gave me breakfast. And she said, do you come from a land down under? Where women go and men wonder. Can't you hear the thunder? You gotta run, you gotta take cover. 'Cause we are living in a land down under. Where women go and men wonder.
Am I on? I think I'm on. There's a delay always when you're watching it on the phone. G'day everybody, it's Casper from Brisbane, coming at you on a Monday the 6th of May. Yes, I'm coming to you from the future. It is about 5 to 9 p.m. at night, and I thought I'd better do an Aussie Rules. Because I haven't done one I certainly haven't done one in May, but I think I did one a couple of weeks ago. I did talk in my previous podcast that I'd probably be cutting down to about 2 a month, so, once a fortnight might be okay. Just depends on what I've got to discuss, and I must be completely honest with you and tell you that I don't have my book of list of things to talk about tonight. I think I'm just going to fly off the top of my head. I'm going to do it Jeff Count style. So, and talking to Jeff Count, I was hoping to get hold of Jeff, but this particular time is not a good time because let's have a look. What time is it? Is it in Canada? So it is. It's 5 to 7 in the morning, which would be a Sunday morning. Early in the morning. I don't think he's an early riser because he stays up all night, so it's probably not a good time. But I did Skype him earlier on this evening, and I didn't get a reply. Sorry for my odd coughing, but still recovering from a very serious virus that I had that I spoke about in my last podcast. So I'm feeling a lot better, but still got that cough. The chest is still clearing up, but it's 95%. So anyway, what have I been doing? I got to admit that I started this podcast. I was going to pre-record it because I wanted to try a few things. And then when I got about 10 minutes in, I tried something and I didn't know if it was working. So then I stopped the recording and I listened to it and it was working. I just have this little problem of when I play stuff through OBS, I don't hear it myself. So it's very hard to get the timing right when something ends. So I'm a little bit, can't work out why I can't hear it. I don't know, when I hear other things, not through OBS, but if I play something else on my computer. But anyway, doesn't matter. I'm working around it. So, and also when I start my Periscope and I share it, well, it automatically shares to Twitter, right? I get an error message on my iPhone and it doesn't share to Twitter. So some people, get my notices or whatever, and they might just jump on, say hello, whatever. Some stay for a few minutes. Most of the time I record this and everyone else that I know is very fast asleep, so I don't really get to interact with many people, but I get a lot of replays. So when I post it in it's on Periscope, I put it on YouTube, and it's on my website, which my links are all there if you click on something, doesn't it? No, I don't know. Listen, I don't care. What have I been doing? Had our first win of the season last Friday night. We won. The mighty team that I manage, we won 5-2 at soccer, and it was so good because we went through a whole round. There's only 4 teams. We've sort of trimmed it down. We're in over 45 social comp now, rather than over 35 semi-competitive. We're really in a bit of a social comp, even though we're all trying it probably as hard as we can. And we basically went through the round. We played the other 3 teams. We lost. Even though they were close, we lost. But anyway, we won. And I had a really good game in defence, even though I don't want to play defence all the time, but it's where I'm needed, so that's where I'm playing at the moment. So, I think last time I spoke to you guys, I told you about my nice little windfall that I had at the club. So that sort of got me into a few other things, and I'll explain. I brought myself a little arcade game. You know, the old arcade games where, Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and Space Invaders, like the original Space Invaders and Galaga and Galaxian and all that. All the ones that, I used to play when I was a kid. Well, I brought myself one of them. Normally, if you buy the cocktail sit-down arcade type game, costs you about, you can basically pay $1,000, $800 to $1,000, like Australian, or maybe even more, $1,200 even, for a really, really nice one. These are like a mini version, but I mean, it's the same thing. I don't think I tweeted out a picture of it because I think it was on my Facebook, which obviously I don't. I keep Facebook separate from Twitter, from Casper type situation. I brought that and I played it and I loved it, and I started looking at it because I'm one of these types of people that like to know how something works, and this is going to sound retarded, but sometimes when I buy something new and I'll take it apart and look at it. Does that sound bad? I haven't done that with my car, don't worry. But yeah, I looked at this thing, and the reason why I was fascinated about this little arcade game is that many years ago I was going to actually do one myself, but I never got round to it. But I brought the jammer card and I got the jammer harness and I got the power supply, which is pretty much half of what you need. I mean, everything. I know you need everything. I didn't have the cabinet. I didn't have the buttons. I didn't have the joysticks and stuff like that. But all the all the cabinet, the timber. But when I looked at the flat pack for a cocktail, sit-down cocktail type arcade machine, they're about $500 for the timber that then you've got to put together and do everything else. And I thought, oh shit, $500. I mean, there's half of the $1,000 you could spend doing, just buying one. And I'm a little bit like, I'd rather spend $1,000 and buy the whole thing ready to plug in and play than spend $500 and have to put the whole fucking thing together myself, along with all the other parts. Just buying the timber already pre-cut and stuff, nah. So I put it off for a while. But anyway, when I had this downfall, I brought myself a little arcade thing, and then I wanted to know how it was put together so that I could possibly do another one for my nieces, who love this type of thing as well, because I already had most of the parts. Well, at least I think I pretty much had half of the cost of this thing. So this thing cost me $550 delivered, and I got them to deliver it on a public holiday, which was pretty awesome negotiating, I thought. So anyway, they delivered it and I played it. Anyway, so I've taken like a few panels off and I've looked inside this thing, right? Guys, there's nothing to it. There's absolutely nothing to it. This is a small fucking PCB board, right? Which I've already costed for $60 off eBay. 60 in one games it is. And then it's a harness. Actually, they didn't even use a jammer harness, which is only fucking $18, $20 off eBay, right? They've made their own harness with the wires and stuff, right? So that they've made this thing as cheap as they can to make maximum profit. So they've used decent buttons, decent joystick, and a very small friggin' 805 watt speaker. Power supply. I've costed all this up, and I'll go through it with you guys. So basically, I haven't costed the timber because the Bunnings that I go to, the hardware place, every local friggin' Bunnings is out of this black timber that you buy, melamine timber, which is just like you can buy it in white or black or whatever. But you don't want to do a white cabinet, so black cabinet's the way to go. So anyway, you'd have to travel pretty far to get to a Bunnings that have this stuff in stock. So yesterday I went to 2 Bunnings, they don't have it, so I'm just sort of trying to work out where else I can get this stuff from at a decent price. But I've costed this up, and I've put an estimated cost of timber at $60, and it may be less than that. I costed everything up. If I had to buy everything off eBay, it came to $300. Now, yes, there's a lot of time to put in, and you need a saw, which I've had to order a saw anyway, so I've ordered myself a saw. But I've only got to build 2 of these machines to get my money back from the saw. So yeah, I'm gonna build. I'm in the middle of building one. I've got all these parts all over my desk. I've got the monitor. I've got the jammer card. See, I already had the jammer card. Sorry, you need to buy a monitor too. About a 19-20 inch monitor, depending on what size cabinet you want to make. I got a second-hand monitor, which was perfect condition, for $35 off eBay, plus friggin' $15 delivery. So that's $50. You've got your monitor. The jammer cards all have VGA. You don't have to use the old boards, old screens that they used to put in those gaming machines when we used to go and play as a kid. So anyway, so yeah, this is what I'm into at the moment. So I've been preparing my switches, my micro switches, and I've got my joysticks here on the desk. I've got all this shit ready. I just need the timber and the saw. I've got a perfect copy sample of the one that I have, and in fact I'm proving on the one I have, because the one I have, the power cable is too short, and it just goes into a hole straight into the guts of the cabinet, right? Where you need one of those power socket switches on the outside that you just click on and off. So you plug in, you just switch the red switch on and off. So I'm putting that into my new cabinet, and I'm also going to put it on my old cabinet. A few improvements on my old cabinet, the buttons and all that, they're just normal push buttons with micro switches, right? I'm buying the ones that light up so that the cabinet actually looks nicer when you look at it. So I'm doing some improvements on that. So that's what I'm into. That's what I'm into at the moment. I wasn't going to get mainly into this. I think I told you guys last time that I brought a fucking big ass TV as well. I brought a I brought a huge TV, and I finally mounted it on the wall. I put this bracket on the wall. I wasn't happy with the bracket, so I brought a heavier duty bracket because I couldn't pick up the joist behind the gyprock. So anyway, I mounted this bracket, right? I swear to God, you could hang anything off this thing. The thing takes 120 kilos or something, and the TV's probably 40 kilos maybe. So anyway, I've got it hanging on the wall now. It takes up 3/4 of the wall. It's quite a big TV. So anyway, I'm happy with it. I got my. I think I told you guys in the last podcast. I got the 4K working on the 4K channel. I got the speakers working. I found out the TV has limited functionality. Like, it really only had basic outputs and stuff. So I've had to do sort of various things to get the sound working in my 5.1 speakers. But I finally worked that out. I wasted a few purchases on eBay buying stuff that didn't work, but I tell you what, thank God for YouTube. You know, you can fucking work out how to do anything using YouTube. It's incredible, like how to wire everything up and what all the. I mean, tonight I've learnt basically how to do this thing. You know, like with heaps of confidence now that I can do it. So. I may end up taking pictures and videos while I assemble this cabinet and put it on my YouTube video, just because I need some new content. And I think I might do that. But anyway, what else has been going on? Let's talk about Twitter for like 5 minutes. So a long time ago, I decided that I didn't want to have much to do with certain people and a certain community that I was sort of part of for a few years, and as time has gone on, I like it this way. I thought that I would struggle, and I thought that I would have to go and argue with people, and to justify your spot because they just seem. But then I realized that it's not really worth it, and the people that I wanted to stay friends with online, I have, and I thank those people, and we talk quite often. And thank you for the DMs from people that shall remain nameless, but I understand their position as well. But I'm still hearing about things that are not very nice things that are going on, but I heard some other information too, which I can't very well know whether it's 100% certain, but there's a certain person that's been trolling and causing trouble in online communities and stuff for a long time. And I heard a story that there might have been another person that was going to put an end to that because he had this person's information. And while I don't support doxing, I certainly don't support what this asshole douchebag has done to people, including me. Ruining people's friendships and taking things out of context and even going as far as making stuff up, which really sucks. But I don't even have like how they do shit like that because it's not in me to want to do things like that. So I haven't looked at how to do things like that, like fake ass shit. But anyway, doesn't matter. I like the way it is. I contemplated just unblocking people, but I don't want those people. I don't know how this Twitter works. Like, if someone used to follow you and you then blocked them, if you unblock the person, is that person still following you? Does that stay there, or after some time, do you have to re-ask them to follow? Like you're back to square one type thing? Because if I could unblock everybody and just go back to square one, where I don't want them to follow me and I'm certainly not following them, and I just want it to be like that. I don't want it to be, because when you block people, because I've never been a big supporter, but I didn't have any choice. When you block people, you're sort of like, you're definitely making a statement, whereas if you just don't follow a person, then you can sort of just explain, well, I don't really like the stuff that you post, so no offense, I don't have any problems, I just don't want to follow you, and I don't really want you to follow me either, I'd rather take that sort of stance, but I don't know how it works. And I did Google it. Maybe someone can let me know that if you have someone blocked for a certain amount of time, Does it void the follows that you both had for each other? That's what I really need to know. Anyway, I want to give you some Aussie fact tonight. Remember, I love to do a lot of periscopes when I'm driving. I haven't done one for a couple of weeks, but I like to do it when I'm driving. But I've been having trouble with my magnetic stand out of my vent to put the phone on. And I can't do it during the day because the phone gets too hot if I use the holder that's close to the window. But I'm heading into winter and I do most of my scopes at night, so maybe I could put it there. But again, it doesn't share to Twitter when I go live. That's how a lot of people get notified, so I'm really disappointed at that. But anyway, obviously, over here in Australia, we drive on the left-hand side of the road, and often people would say, "Hey, Casper, watch out, you're on the wrong side of the road." So I got something interesting that you might want to have a look at. So I'll just run it right now, and then we'll have a chat.
A few years ago, my friend and I went to Hawaii, and we rented a car to get around. Here's me on day one, the car still in the parking lot, looking a little terrified at the prospect of driving. Not because I was tired or because I hate driving. It was because in Australia, you drive on the left side of the road, whereas in the US, you drive on the right. Most countries in the world, about 2/3, drive on the right side, which leaves 1/3 that drives on the left. You might be wondering why people who drive on the left don't just switch over to the right. The thing is, left-hand side traffic was the worldwide norm for a long time. So how come a split now exists? Well, the reason boils down to two main factors. One, the fact that most people are right-handed, and two, the fact that countries were using different forms of transportation at the time formalised road rules began to emerge. Back in the Middle Ages, way before cars existed, people mainly travelled around on horseback or by foot. People kept to the left so they could keep their dominant hand closer to the centre of the road. Remember, this was a time when people often carried weapons on them, such as swords, knives or daggers, while travelling because of bandits and outlaws. Also, people almost always mount horses from the left side, and it's safer to mount from the roadside than in the middle of the road. This left side travelling continued for years across the world until about the time of the French Revolution. There was a big class distinction on the roads of France at the time. The wealthy would drive their carriages on the left and force poorer people to travel to the right. But by the end of the revolution, the aristocracy began travelling on the right to blend in with the lower classes, and France's roads effectively became right-side travel. So you had France travelling on the right and places like England travelling on the left. Throughout Britain, it was more a matter of custom than widespread regulation until 1835, when Parliament passed a law forcing traffic to keep left. In France, the keep right rule was established more firmly by this guy. As Napoleon conquered countries across Europe, those countries were forced to switch sides. Meanwhile, in the US, one particular wagon was a big driving force for keeping to the right. The Conestoga wagon became popular in the late 1700s as a way to transport heavy goods. These massive wagons could hold thousands of kilograms worth of cargo and needed teams of horses to pull them along. There was no driver's seat, so the driver would usually sit on the rear left horse, so they could still hold a whip in their hand. Because of this, the wagons travelled on the right, so the driver sitting on the left would have more visibility over the rest of the road. In 1792, Pennsylvania officially passed the first keep right law in the US to this turnpike. 12 years later, New York enforced right-hand travel on all public highways, and it slowly spread across the rest of the US. In time, more and more countries shifted to the right. As they found themselves surrounded by converted land neighbours, it was just easier to follow suit. When the US started putting steering wheels on the left, that became extra incentive to switch. Cars initially had the wheel on the right, following horse-drawn buggies. Ford was the first to put the wheel on the left, with the Model T in 1908. Initially, it was just to make disembarking easier, but car manufacturers soon realised it was better and safer for the driver to sit more towards the centre of the road. And because the US is such a big car exporting country, this was an extra push for more countries to switch over to the right, so they could use the cars. Obviously, not everyone made the switch. British colonies stayed on the left and still do for the most part. And countries like Japan and Thailand that were never British colonies but had dealings with the British also kept to the left. But most countries switched to the right in the early to mid 20th century. In fact, only 3 places have switched back from right to left in recent times. In Japan, Okinawa was controlled by the US after World War II and made to drive on the right. It switched back to the left on July 30th, 1978, after being returned to Japan 6 years previously. Timor-Leste switched to the left under Indonesian rule in 1975, And Samoa switched over in 2009 so they could import old Australian cars instead of more expensive US cars. The Samoans had a smooth changeover. They got a 2-day national holiday to ease traffic and had a 3-day ban on alcohol to deter accidents. But they had a relatively small population at the time of about 180,000 people. So what would happen in a country with a lot more people and a lot more that could go wrong? Sweden switched from left to right in 1967. With a population of about 7.8 million people at the time, there was a lot to prepare for H-Day. Road markings had to be repainted, bus stops relocated, intersections and one-way streets redesigned, and about 360,000 street signs changed. At precisely 5 a.m. on September 3rd, Swedes were directed to switch over to the right. The whole process cost 628 million krona, the equivalent of more than $400 million today. But the country's road networks and infrastructure are a lot more sophisticated now than they were 50 years ago. Not to mention there are a lot more people and cars. A switch nowadays would be a lot harder and cost a lot more. It's the main reason why we won't see another country switching sides anytime soon. It would be a huge logistical exercise that would cost a lot more than people are willing to spend for something that isn't needed. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. In the end, it only took a day or two for us to be comfortable driving on the other side of the road, and it's probably what travellers will have to keep doing. You may have noticed that most left-side driving countries are actually islands, which helps justify not switching over. For the few that do share borders with right-side driving countries, most of the time it's a non-issue. You'd have to go through customs first, so you'd go through border security on one side and exit out the other. But for a few countries, they've come up with some inventive solutions.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. Some of those facts, hey, left and right hand. Yeah, I thought another thing I wanted to talk about too. Hey, I noticed my good friend, the Brain, Brian Peterson. I don't know if any of you guys have checked out. He does some really good scopes, and I can see. I was just talking about the community a couple of minutes ago, and I just sort of sitting here thinking like, wow, he's someone that. Sorry, I just turned it up there. My volume went down a little bit. He's somebody who's moved on, and I noticed that he's involved with a lot of other people, and he does a lot of scopes, and he's involved in battle chats, and he interviewed Grillo for a short period there the other night. I caught the end of the scope. I've got to go back and listen to the Grillo part, but I'm having trouble with my notifications as well. I think I turned all my notifications off Periscope because there was far too many, but I know I need to go back and just select particular ones that I'd love to jump in on early on when they start their scope, rather than watching the bloody replay all the time. Yeah. Anyway, another Aussie fact. I'm going to give you guys another Aussie fact. So this one is about Metric and Imperial. So let's have a look at this one.
In July 1983, Air Canada Flight 143 ran out of fuel and had to make an emergency landing. In September 1999, NASA lost contact with the Mars Climate Orbiter, its $200 million spacecraft, after it crashed into Mars. And in December 2003, a roller coaster in Tokyo Disneyland derailed. What do these incidents have in common? They all happened because of mix-ups between the metric and imperial systems. Not pumping enough fuel, calculating incorrect trajectories, and using an axle that was too small. Pretty much every country in the world uses the metric system for measurement. Having a universal system would be like having a common language across the world, making it easier to communicate, trade, and invest. So why doesn't the US want to commit to the metric system? Well, technically it already has. Yes, since all the way back in 1875 and several times since, the United States has committed to the metric system. All its units have been defined in terms of metric standards since the late 1800s, and it's officially the preferred system of weights and measures for United States trade and commerce. So if the country is committed to the metric system, then why isn't it using it? Well, to understand that, we need to take a look back at how the metric system came to be. For hundreds and thousands of years, humans used a variety of number and measurement systems. Within the same country, you'd encounter different units while moving from town to town. This obviously made things like trading a lot more complicated. Fast forward to the French Revolution. At this point in time, France had tens of thousands of different standards. The revolutionaries wanted, among other things, a radical new measurement system that would be simple and universal. People had already been developing a decimal system of measurement for some time, but the revolution sort of sped things up. The French turned to the constants of nature. For example, the first definition of the metre was based on the distance between the equator and the North Pole. Other units in the new system were based upon the metre. 1 litre was defined as the volume of a cubic decimeter. And the system as a whole was decimal based to make conversions easier. Like any widespread change, people didn't take to it straight away. They even abandoned it for a while before returning to it in 1840. But the system soon became so useful that many other countries began adopting it. A few decades later, an international agreement was formed to refine the accuracy of the standards. 17 countries signed the agreement, including the United States of America. They declared the metre as the length of this metal pole and the kilogram as the mass of this metal cylinder. 85 years later, the metric system was updated again to bring it into modern times. Known as the SI system, it established 7 base units. This is the metric system as we know it today. And in case you're wondering, the metre is now defined once again by nature. It's the length of the path travelled by light in a vacuum in 299,792,458th of a second. Anyway, getting back to the point, the US has signed several documents over several decades committing to the metric system. So why is it still using the imperial system today? The US customary system, as it's officially called, is not the easiest system to learn. There's no direct correlation between different units. Instead of a decimal-based system where units can be converted fairly simply, there are several different conversions to remember. What's interesting is these imperial units are already all defined in relation to SI units. Since 1959, the pound has officially been exactly 0.45359,237 kilograms and a yard 0.9144 meters. Which means even though everything you buy in the US is usually in customary units, you can trace it all back to the metric system. Also, the names for various imperial units are sometimes the same, which can be a bit confusing. How much do you think a ton weighs? Do you think of the short ton, which is 2,000 pounds, or maybe the long ton, which is 2,240 pounds? If that's not confusing enough, these are just 2 of the several tons out there. And if you're sitting there thinking a ton is 1,000 kilograms, that's the metric ton, with an extra NE. The US has tried to switch to metric though, several times. Even though it was authorised for use way back in 1866, the strongest push for metrication came more than 100 years later. In 1975, Congress passed the Metric Conversion Act and established the US Metric Board. The board wasn't given much power though. It got as far as Interstate 19 in Arizona, the only US highway to have metric road signs. The board was then dissolved in 1982. But then a few years later, the act was amended to declare metric as the preferred system in the United States. Since 1994, both metric and US customary units have been required on commercial packaging. And the metric system is now the standard in a lot of industries, with construction being one of the exceptions. But the reason it's still not used in day-to-day life is because while the act has been amended over the years, one key part hasn't changed: the fact that conversion is still voluntary. Other countries which have converted from imperial to metric, especially in the last 50 years or so, have successfully done so because it was compulsory. In Australia, conversion to the metric system began in 1970, with some industries converting first before others. By the end of 1976, most industries and all packaged goods had been converted to metric. Even the birthplace of the imperial system, England, began transitioning to the metric system in 1965 to integrate more closely with continental Europe. For them, it was a long and slow process. There are still systematic hangovers from the imperial system, but in schools, the metric system is taught. These examples highlight the main reason most countries have converted, even when, not if, faced with resistance. It's to keep up with the global economy. In the US today, only federal agencies are required to use the metric system for business where practical. While the US remains imperial, many private businesses are having to produce for both the US and overseas markets. Liberia and Myanmar are the only 2 other countries which haven't officially made the switch. But in practice, the 2 countries do use several aspects of the metric system in daily life. It will take some time for the US to switch over and cost a lot initially. But the cost of metrication is one-off, compared to the ongoing cost of servicing 2 markets. So while the rest of the world continues to operate in a metric system, it seems like only a matter of time before the US switches over. 4 of the 7 base SI units, including the kilogram, are actually currently in the process of being redefined. The definitions will return to the constants of nature, like the meter did, so no more metal cylinder. So what changes will this have for you? Not much. The current definitions are fine for day-to-day use, but they're just not up to scratch for modern scientific testing. So when the process is all done, you should notice a difference.
Yeah, so there's that one. I thought that was pretty interesting too. Notice that, like, common theme there where it's like, oh, we've told the US to do this, but they don't do it. They just do what they want to do. They don't want to move. But I've got to admit, yeah, I'm a metric boy, and I saw the conversion there. Oh my god, I can see why they want to move to metric, make it real easy with the zeros and stuff. But I guess once you learn it, if you're into the imperial system, once you know it, when you learn it as a boy, you're pretty right. It must seem like the other way is stupid, but anyway. So there's my two little Aussie facts tonight. I thought was interesting. I'll load up another two for the next podcast if I go down that road. But what else I wanted to talk about tonight was what I've been watching, and I know this probably won't suit everybody, but I was very, very anxious to wait for Game of Thrones, and when he eventually came back, I was very, very, very excited. But I have to say, like everyone else said, the biggest fight, I guess, we were waiting for was so dark. And I got a 65-inch TV or something, and I struggled to I was able to see it. It's quite bright, like the TV's quite on the bright side, but it wasn't very well done and I was listening to one of Howard Stern's shows last week. I don't know when I listened to it, because I downloaded it like a few days afterwards, but he was going on about it and then arguing with John Hyde and all that sort of stuff. And I have to admit that we all know it's not real. We all know it's a fucking show. And yes, I know it had to be at night, because that's when the dead was, were out. They obviously don't make house calls during the day. But, like, they have all this, magic lighting to make night look brighter. And I don't know why they didn't do it. It was such an epic fight. But I mean, I'm sure the next one trying to take King's Landing is going to be obviously probably in the daytime. They probably learnt their lesson, although they've already filmed it all, so they wouldn't have known at the time. But I was very disappointed that it was so dark, and because it was such an epic thing about the lead up to this fight. How they were gonna survive, and it was pretty cool how he got taken out. And for me, the coolest part was when Jon Snow just got on a fucking dragon and fucking rode it. And I just watched what episode did I watch today? Was it 3 or 4? The one that just came out. The one that just came out where the second dragon got friggin' killed. And they, didn't even achieve anything out of it other than the ships got all destroyed when they went to King's Landing, and a dragon got taken out, and fuck me dead, she looked really pissed. And now there's only one dragon left, so it's going to be interesting what happens. And the interesting twist to it is about Jon Snow being the true sort of heir to the throne or whatever, but I don't know how that's going to work out. So, but I mean, I saw something about, someone said like she's his aunt or whatever. I mean, he's already banged her, right? So he's already banged his aunt. Anyway, I don't know. I refreshed myself on all the Game of Thrones. I tried to get through as many while I was sick. They did a big binge on Foxtel here on cable TV, and I was obviously, I had a period of time where I didn't sleep for 3 days, and obviously I was quite nutty. I just sat here and in my deathbed and sipped lemonade and water and stuff for my sore throat, and I just binged on all these games of Game of Thrones, all these shows of Game of Thrones, and they went through every single every single season and every single show. So I'm sure I missed some, but because at some point in time I did probably sleep for 20 minutes or something. That's about me for tonight. I haven't really touched on too many things, but thank you for anyone who listens to the replay. I saw a few people jump in and out and stuff like that, but I was gonna try to call Jeff, but I don't think, maybe it's not a good idea. I could just try one call to him. I'm not gonna make a big deal. If he doesn't answer, that's fine. But I'm not gonna push because the guy's probably sleeping. I really should turn those things off, shouldn't I? Nah, I'm not gonna put. Jeff is on a phone. I'm not gonna push it. He was. Oh no, he's green. I might have activated his Skype now, and now it's green. But no biggie. If he's there and he sort of saw my missed call, he'll call me straight back. But no, it's all good. I was hoping to promote and discuss his new crowdcast that he's doing, Count Country on Crowdcast, and yeah, he's working on a few things, and I was trying to work out how to get some new people, how to attract some people in there, just because basically you just need a group of people, and if topics just come up and discussions happen, but at the moment he's got the same old people coming over from Kermitown or whatever Kermitown, or is that what they're calling it now, or is it Chadtown or something like that, or Douchetown? I don't know. I've left that behind now. I'm not going to go back into that. I've had enough of that shit. But anyway, thank you very much for listening tonight, and I'm hoping maybe next time I'll try to do this shit during the day that suits other people. I'd like to talk to Kleenex and see what he's been doing. I follow him on Twitter, and I can see that he tweets some funny comments back to people. I don't even know the people that he's replying back to. I mean, other than the Tricep and Dougie and that, but I mean, there's people that are US, people, or maybe politicians or something like that. And he'll just tweet back and say, "Oh, you look like a dickhead, or you look like a punk, or something." He's always got funny comments. So I wanted to catch up with Kleenex because it's been a long time since I've had a discussion with Kleenex, and I've always loved Kleenex. And also, I want to grab Brian Peterson, the Brain, and see how he's been going, and just see how I want to talk to him about battle chats, and I'll talk about all this other periscoping that he's doing. He's really into it, which is it's really great to see. I love it. And, of course, we'll catch up with Jeff. Jeff wanted me to do a best of friggin' fifth. I think, what did we do before, guys? We did we do 80s and 90s? I think we did 80s and 90s. And then he goes, "Oh, we got to do 70s, Dazza, or 50s. I'm thinking, nah, man, come on, you're going back too far. But I'm thinking maybe we just do one song each from the 50s and from the 60s and the 70s. We just do one song of each, and our favourite song or something like that, and then then we'll have a chat or something. That's what I'm thinking we'll do next time. So anyway, thank you very much, everybody, for joining me tonight. As all, take care. Peace out, guys. Catch you later.
Traveling in a fighter combi on a hippie trailhead full of zombies. I met a strange lady. She made me nervous. She took me in and gave me breakfast. And she said, "Do you come from a land down under? Where women go and men wonder? Can't you hear the thunder? You better run, you better take cover." I've come